So in this tutorial video, I will show you how you can set up the regression testing for your ETF projects. It's a very valuable experience for you, so you can keep adding tests to your test folder and then keep testing your code. Every time you introduce a new change to your code, you really want to make sure all the previous tests actually still pass so that you can continue with your new fix. Okay, so let's just go to your REST server to actually set up the regression testing. So now you can simply SSH into your REST server. Okay, let's go into it. In my case, I simply store my starter code in the some folder. So you can just go to your folder in your REST server. Okay, simply that. Okay, and Battleship. This should be the starter code that you retrieved for your Lab 4 or projects. Okay, so this is basically the directory structure you have, and for now, this particular Battleship I already generated using the ETF-new and also battleship.ui.txt, and then that's exactly the command I just ran. Okay, so I presume you did the same. Okay, so now in the Battleships folder over here, it contains all the projects that you're going to eventually submit. Okay, so now apart from this, let me just show you how you can set up the test. So the folder you have to look into is this particular folder called Regression Testing over here. It contains the Python programs that you can run for your regression testing. The idea is in the regression testing folder, we're going to modify a file called parameters file. And we're just going to change a few parameters over there. Specifically, we have to refer to some path, relative path, to the Battleship project. I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it without moving this regression testing folder around. But since all the paths are just going to be relative, you can feel free to move your regression testing folder inside the Battleship project if you like. Okay, it's completely up to you, but I'll show you the way it is right now. Okay, so the idea is we're going to say inside the regression testing folder, when we say ... it's going to be referring to this directory we are seeing right now, and then so that we can go into Battleship. Okay, so if you go, let's see which folder do we want to go into Battleship. We want to go to Battleship, and then we want to go into tests and also acceptance, and specifically we want to go inside students. So now for you, what we gave you to start with are the AT001, AT002. You want to add as many files for acceptance testing as you can, starting from AT003 maybe. Okay, so that's all the folders should be put inside the student directory. Okay, that's something we're gonna change. Okay, and also we want to refer to the path called oracle.txt. Okay, so that's also the folder we have to include the file. Okay. So now let's see this. Okay, again, let's see this. So now let's go to regression testing over here. So you can see, so these are the two files that that's in Python. Specifically, you want to modify the parameters in this file. I'm going to show you how. And then this program is what you have to run when you want to run the regression testing. Okay. So now let's simply go to ETF. You can use any editor on Linux. For example, I can use Nano. ETF test parameters.py, and then so there are only a few you want to change. The number one to change will be where the tests folder should be. So now it should be referring to the Battleship projects and tests. Okay, let's copy the path. Okay, so now we are currently in this particular under Battleship starter code. We are under regression testing. So what I should do is ... We're going to go to the parent folder and then Battleship. So that's the generated project from ETF, and also we go into tests. Okay, that's the path I need. So I will simply copy this guy here, and then I will just go back to Nano to change that particular parameter. Okay, so I will simply just go there, and then Control V. Okay, it's gonna paste. Okay, that's the number one change to make. And number two, you can go to over here. So now there is a flag over here. At the moment, it simply say true. Simply means you assume there will be some expected file given to you. For example, AT001.expected.txt. However, as you add in more acceptance test file by yourself, you don't necessarily have the expected file right away. So what we can do for your convenience is we can simply change this to be false. Okay, which means every time when you have a particular acceptance test file you want to try, for example, AT005.txt, you want to say, I'm going to run the Oracle program on this particular AT005.txt, and then it's going to generate the expected file. And then it's also going to run the AT005.txt on your program in the ifgen folder. And then it's going to generate AT005.actual.txt. And then you can compare these two files together. I'm going to draw some diagram to show you the difference. Okay, so now just change this to false, and then let's see what else to change. And then very importantly, so now the Oracle over here. So where should be the Oracle? Okay, easy. We can simply dot, and then we can say oracle.exe. So that's what we gave to you. And now very important to change will be this executable parameter over here, right? So this should refer to the path of your program. Okay, whenever you develop any new code or design for your project, you should really try to compile your project, and then you can let this path to refer to your executable. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you how you can get a path. Okay, let me just say Control X and then say Y to save, and then enter. Okay, so now let me just go to the path. So you can say dot and then Battleship. And then I can go to ifgens, and now since I just assuming that I only say freeze when I compile my iPhone project. If you say finalize, you have to go to F code. So now ifgens and W code Battleship, and then W code and Battleship. Okay, that's the executable path, right? So of course this has to be F code if you finalize your project. Otherwise it should be W code. I can simply copy this path over here. Okay, let me go back to nano for the parameters file. Okay, let me go all the way to executable down at the bottom. Okay, if I go to executable over here, I'm going to replace the default value over here, which is Oracle. Okay, I simply Control V to paste it. Okay, now it should be set up properly. Okay, everything is set up. Okay, so what I want to do is CD, and then I'll go to, so now what we gave to you previously are the tests under instructor. Okay, so we gave to you AT01.txt. We also gave to you AT02.txt. Let's say we put these two files in the student folder to begin with. So let's say these are the two acceptance tests you should want to start with. And then I will show you how you can add a new file to there, and you will be automatically be run for the testing as well. Okay, that's something I want to show you. Okay, so now all we got to do is, okay, again, we are here. I want to do a copy into, I want to do a copy this, copy tests, and then instructor AT01.txt. That's the acceptance file, right? Consisting of just the commands, not the expected file, just the acceptance file. And then I want to copy that into Battleship, and then I want to go into tests, acceptance, and then students. Okay, just copy into that folder. Okay, and then I'll do the same, and then I'll say AT02.txt. Okay, so what have we got? Basically, so now if you simply list the contents for your Battleship, and then you go into tests, acceptance, and then students, you will see AT01 and AT02 over there. Okay, so now how do we run the regression testing? Okay, let me run it first, and then I will show you exactly, visualize what we have done. Okay, so now again we go into regression testing over here. Okay, if you list the contents of regression testing, again we got the parameters file. Okay, I just realized I should really make a small change over there, which I didn't do correctly. Okay, let's just go back there again. Okay, so if you say nano ETF test and parameters.py, if you go there for the root folder over here, okay, so this should be Battleship test and acceptance. That's something I forgot. And by the way, if you say, so we are referring to this particular relative path to acceptance folder. Under the acceptance folder, we actually got two subfolders. If you check your project's directory, both the instructor and students. Let's say for you as a student, every time you add new acceptance test, you should really add it to the under the student folder, not instructor. So that's something I didn't do correctly in the beginning. So let's fix it. So you change that to acceptance as a subfolder, and also here put students. Okay, so now that should be properly set up. Okay, so make sure you make all the changes accordingly in the parameters file. So now let's run the acceptance test before I visualize it to you. So now I would say Python 3, and then we say ETF test.py. Okay, if you say that, it's going to do some execution, and then you simply say the test result. You got 0 out of 2 tests passed. First of all, 2 makes sense because we copy AT001. You can see this is what we ran. You can see it's under ... battleship tests acceptance students AT01.txt and also AT02.txt. Makes sense because we just copy those 2 files into your student folder. And now 0 passed also makes sense because in my case I simply just compile the generated project from ETF. So nothing has been done. Of course, in your case, you have to develop your project so that your produced output can match the Oracle output. Okay, so now so far we have run AT001 and also we have run AT002. Okay, let me show you one more thing before I visualize something for you. Okay, so now again we are now in the regression testing directory. Okay, if you look at what's going on here, there's a folder over here called log, which contains very useful information. If you go into log over here, okay, let me clear the terminal and do it again. You can see under students in the log, you can see we got 4 files over here, right? You can see by running AT001.txt, we generated 2 files over here, which is AT001.actual.txt and AT001.expected.txt, and similarly for AT02.txt. What's going on here? Okay, so now let me show you some illustration over here. So basically, for the example of, let's say AT001.txt, we call this an acceptance file, acceptance test, which means in that file over there is I simply get maybe new game, and then I try to fire, and I try to bump, and then I try to do another new game, right? So you just get a series of commands. So that's a so-called acceptance test. You simply try to run the program from the customer's point of view. They simply just initiate one command after another. Okay, that's the acceptance test. And then we want to know whether our program over here, which you did, compile inside the ifgens folder. It can be in either W code or F code. So the regression testing script, Python script, is going to run this particular acceptance test by 2 programs. One is your program inside the ifgens. That's why we specify the path in the parameters file. And the second one is it's going to run the Oracle that we gave to you, right? So now the oracle.exe, by running that on the acceptance test in question, is going to generate the expected version, which means this is the expected output, versus the script will also run the AT001.txt on your program, in which case it's going to generate the actual version. So you got 2 versions over here. One is the actual program, the other one is the expected output. And the script simply check to see for each acceptance test whether they match or not. If they match, that's good. Then that means you pass this particular test. If it doesn't match, that means you gotta fix your program so that they will match. Okay, that's the case for just one single acceptance test. So now for regression testing, it goes like this. So for regression testing, what you have to do is you have to have a repository of AT acceptance test file, right? We start with AT001.txt and also AT002.txt. You may want to accumulate every time if you can think about a particular scenario that your program may have to survive through. You want to always make sure your program can actually generate the identical output as can be generated by the Oracle. So maybe starting from AT003.txt, you can just keep accumulating maybe until AT100.txt. So you got 100 acceptance tests inside your regression testing folder or inside your test folder in your projects. Okay. So now what's the idea? The idea is whenever you make any changes to your program over here, maybe you try to implement a new feature or you try to do a bug fix. Whenever you change your program over here, you want to make sure all the existing acceptance tests in your repository can still be passed. So every time you make a small change, make sure compile your IFO projects and rerun the Python script again. So it's going to make sure every test that you have done so far, they still pass. If there's any one of them that does not pass, that means your new change actually injected an error. So in that case, you should really stop testing and fix the bug first, so that all the regression testing repository still got all their tests passed. Okay, that's kind of the idea and workflow you want to stick to. Okay, so now every time if you simply come to the, if you're wondering about why a particular acceptance test actually failed, you can always try to look at the contents for the actual file, for example, AT01.actual.txt to see exactly what the issue is. On the Linux server, you can simply say melt AT001.actual.txt and also AT001.expected.txt, and then % is if you hit enter, it's going to show you some nice GUI to compare exactly where the discrepancies are. Okay, that's a very handy tool for you. Okay, so now as a recap, what you have to do is for your ETF projects, you have to make sure you set up the regression testing properly. And what you have to do is from your starter code, you have to go into the regression testing folder over here and change a few things about the parameter file, the root folder, and also the folder for the tests, and also your executable path, and also Oracle path. So these are the 4 things you have to modify. Okay, let me show you one last thing. How do you add new tests to be included in the regression testing repository, right? Let's say currently I only got AT01 and AT02. How do I add AT03? Where should I add it? Okay, simple, just add it to the test folder that we just specified. So what I will do is I'll simply do a simple one. I can say nano. Okay, I can go to the Battleship project folder, go into tests, go to acceptance, and go to students. Okay, at the moment I simply got AT01 and AT02. I want to add another one, AT03.txt. Okay, let's start a blank file. I can simply say debug test, and then I can say, for example, easy, and then I can say debug test easy again. What if I try that, right? I'm just curious about what the output should be. I want to make sure for this particular acceptance test scenario, the Oracle is going to generate the same output as my program so that I wouldn't lose marks on this, right? So now if I say Control X, Y for yes, and then enter. Okay, so now what we have done is if you try to list the contents for this particular folder over here, you will see that we got basically AT01, 02, and 03. So now we got 3 tests in the repository. We just added 1. So now what should we do? We want to see if our program is going to pass all the 3. Okay, so now you simply go back to regression testing folder over there, and then we say Python 3 ETF test.python, and then if you try that, you can see now the regression testing script is going to run AT01, is going to run AT02, is also going to run AT03. So you can see in the report it tells you in total it tried to run 3 files rather as opposed to 2 in the previous run, and of course nothing has passed because I haven't done anything yet. That's something you will have to make sure you develop successfully to match all the outputs from the Oracle. Okay, so try to set this up, so hopefully that can help you do some testing as you develop your ETF projects.